And now I offer my greeting. Good early morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and Europe, Dubai. Good evening to our friends in India, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Australia. Nice to see you all again. I just went on Ajahn Sunando, the second monk here, had to renew his visa in Ubon Ratchathani province. And the abbot of Wat Nanachat did not want him traveling on a bus or a plane. So that meant we had to arrange a vehicle. And then I realized that there was one little spot left. Recently, I had a mini pilgrimage and I was revisiting many of the places I had visited on my Tudong walking pilgrimage 19 years ago. But there was one of those spots I had not been able to go to, Pratat Phnom Chedi in Nakhon Phanom province on the Mekong River. And so I did have the opportunity to go there. I left Ajahn Sunando at Wat Nanachat and we drove another 4 hours and spent 2 nights. I was able to meditate for 12 hours and it was very nice. This was the Chedi where I first realized that when I meditate at Chedis, which have real Buddha relics in them, my mind will become more peaceful than normal. And for those of us who are interested in peacefulness, we notice that. We say, oh, how nice. Some energetic blessing, some other presence of, it's hard to explain really, ineffable, but something in the air that assists. And then I considered the matter and discussed the matter with my teacher, and that it is the purity and the merit and the loving kindness of the Buddha, which is attached to that little bit of earth element that he left behind as a relic. And so it was very nice to go back and revisit my first peaceful Chedi meditation and to do some more meditating there. And then Ajahn Sunando does have his visa renewed now, 1 more year. And Tan Nando is a Canadian monk who spent the rainy season here a couple of years ago. He's a little bit infamous because he fell down our cliff face while helping to put out a fire and broke 3 bones. And he's okay, obviously. He's still with us. And he had a really good amulet. So although he broke his rib and his knee and something else in one of his arms, he didn't break his neck or damage any vital organs. And so he's back now, and I've asked him not to put out any more fires and to stick to the path. And nice to have him back. And I remember getting the email in India. I was in India, one of my intensive retreats there, and I opened the email sent to me by Ajahn Pavro. Dear Ajahn, I have bad news. Uh-oh, what's next? Well, there has been a fire. We were putting out the fire with the villagers. There has been an accident. Tan Nando fell down the mountain. And I'm like, oh no, what's the next word going to say? He broke his neck, he's dead. He broke several bones. Then the next line is, but he's okay. He's in the hospital and he's not paralyzed, he's not dead. So anyway, it's nice to welcome him back under happier circumstances. And we took good care of him when he was in his recovery. But it's nice to see him fully recovered and to welcome him back. interesting going to the holy sites in Thailand at the moment because there are no tour buses, and that means no megaphones. And the holy sites are in impeccable repair. They've all been renovated, they're all clean, and the only people going are the local people who have faith, and it's really, really nice actually. And I was doing a little bit of research for possible future pilgrimages within Thailand for my overseas students if traveling becomes possible again. What is nice about Pratat Phnom Chedi is that it's less than a kilometer away from a very wide section of the Mekong River. And so although it was hot, there was a breeze the whole time. And if you sit in the shade of the Chedi, there was this lovely breeze. So it felt very nice. And there were some quite nice renovated kind of like boutique hotels, which are cozy. So hopefully I can show you, some of you, these places in the future. So look what I got today. Happy 49th birthday, Ajahn. So my birthday is in 2 more days, but because we're having the Zoom meeting today, I was able to read many of your lovely good wishes. I'm glad you didn't show them as pictures on the screen and make me weepy. And you can only take so many appreciative comments, you know, before it all starts to be a bit much. So thank you for allowing me to have those weepy moments in private. Something else I have, Joyce and JC, is some pure Mysore sandalwood oil, which I believe is a gift from you too. And the person who ordered it gave it to me 2 days before my birthday. I hope you don't mind.
I hope you like it, Prajan.
It smells divine. It's very nice. Yeah. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
It was meant to be a surprise, Ajahn, so they gave it to you much earlier than I expected.
I think they paid attention when I told them that I hate surprises.
Oh, no.
So anyway.
JC, carry on. First question, please.
Question 1, Ajahn, with ongoing COVID-related challenges, waves of infections and continuing lockdowns, etc., when there is anxiety, fear and worry, contentious differing opinions, anger and resentment from people all around us as well, how to keep the mind bright, especially as the situation seems to drag on and on. On one level, I have more time at home to practice, but the mind is not happy when I sit. Any advice? Mettacittena.
So yes, the world is going through a challenging time. And it's probably a bit different where in different regions of the world, obviously it's like waves, isn't it? It's like a storm and there's waves of, so you have a first wave and a second wave and a third wave, and apparently Thailand is going through its 4th wave. And many people in general have more spare time. Not everybody. People who work in healthcare, etc., quite stressed. But many people have found that they have more time, which is, for a Buddhist practitioner, if we know how to relate to that, is really fortunate for us. But then we have the problem where if the mind isn't happy, if it's not inclining towards coming inward, what do we do? So when I was in Ubon Ratchathani, 2 days ago. I was, some close students visited, and a little boy, the age of 4, very adorable little boy, and his grandma came to see me, and the grandma said that the 4-year-old boy had said to her that morning, "Mom, can you turn off the television? I don't want to hear about the virus anymore." And it's very interesting, isn't it? Because that little boy is experiencing trauma, because all he's hearing all day, pandemic, pandemic, virus, virus. And the grandma hadn't realized, but the boy has enough mindfulness to recognize this information is causing him distress. And grandma, please change the channel or turn it off. And so the kind of constant barrage of news, I don't know how many times per day, if you listen to the radio or television or check internet news, how much you hear about it. And it is a lot. So it does affect the mind. And you will hear about rates of infection, and you'll hear about deaths. And it's been going on for over a year now. So I think in times like this, devotional practice plays a very important and potentially helpful role. Because normally, if our life is somewhat normal, the old normal, not the new normal, then oftentimes people would do their ordinary puja, listen to a Dharma talk, do some meditation, and the mind may experience some peace. But if the amount of input of negative information or disturbing information is greater, it may be the case that you come and you do your chant and you sit and the mind doesn't gladden, the mind doesn't brighten. So you may find that you need stronger medicine or a more powerful, a more energetic, you need to apply more energy to brighten the mind. So if you want to take the analogy of darkness and light, if the darkness around is seeping in, then you need to do more to energetically brighten the mind. And this is where chanting plays a very helpful, potentially helpful and important role. And what we can do with chanting is that we can take a chant that we particularly like, and then you do it many times. You might do it a little louder, a little faster, and you do more repetitions. And so in doing that, doing an energetic chanting practice, then it can really brighten the mind. So Ajahn Nun has been having the monks chant 108 Itipisos. That's the praises to the Buddha that we do, the first verse to the Buddha 108 times. After the evening chanting and then the meditation, they do 108 Itipisos. Takes about 35 minutes. So he's been having the monks do that, I think, most days. And he's been encouraging his students to do it like during their ordinary waking life, to be quietly chanting Itipisos and trying to get people to do rounds of 108. So, and some of my students have been doing 3 rounds of 108 Itipisos, 5 rounds of 108 Itipisos, and one superstar has been doing 10 rounds of 108 Itipisos per day. He set the vow to do 84,000 because Lord Buddha taught 84,000 Dharma verses in the Pitaka. So as a puja to the Buddha, he did 84,000. But he already finished, and I think he's on his 2nd round of 84,000. So he obviously has more spare time than many people. But even so, he has been very diligent, and it's admirable. So some people have a faithy proclivity and others don't. But probably many of the people who listen to Ajahn, given that you have a choice of which Ajahns you listen to, many of the people who listen to Ajahn probably have a bit of a faithy proclivity, which is a good thing, because it's something that you can use. And so there's one chant I wanted to introduce. Some of you will know it, but many of you won't. So there's a new chant that I wanted to introduce tonight, which is called the Jina Banchara Gatha. It's the Buddha's mansion. And the reason I want to introduce this chant is because it's powerfully protective. And we'll go through it and you'll see why it's powerfully protective. It's powerfully protective because you can do it just as a chant, but you can also do it as a visualization. And in this visualization, you're visualizing the 28 Buddhas above your head and various great disciples on your forehead, on your shoulders, in front of your heart, and certain suttas around you like jeweled walls, etc. So this is commentarial. It is not something that Lord Buddha taught when he was walking on this earth. This chant, as far as I'm aware, was composed at Abhayagiri monastery in Sri Lanka. So it's a Theravadan Pali mandala visualization, if you will. But it's an incredibly positive affirmation with regards affirming blessings. So it will either work for you or it won't. But I did want to mention that it is, although you may not have ever heard of it, it is one of the most popular chants in Thailand today. And every day, millions of Thai people chant this. There was one famous monk about 150 years ago, possibly 200 years ago, by the name of Somdet Do. And Somdet Do rediscovered this chant, or discovered it in Thailand. And he became famous for several reasons, but he made a certain type of amulet, which today in Thailand, I think is the most coveted amulet. It's for anybody who likes amulets, everybody wants a Somdet Do amulet. The reason people end up wanting such an amulet is because these things, the fact that everybody wants something, it has to come from something. So basically what it comes from is so many people have walked away from accidents who were wearing one of these things who didn't get harmed. That's how an amulet becomes famous. It's when there's a place where they're frightened that there are ghosts, and if a person is wearing this amulet, the ghost didn't hurt them, they didn't get sick because of the ghost. Something burns down and the only person that survived was somebody who had one of these amulets, that kind of thing. So when you have a lot of those things occurring for more than a century, then word gets around and everybody wants one. So I have one. Sorry. But the reason, sorry, I'm being silly. It's a serious subject. The reason it is so protective is because this particular monk had extremely powerful loving kindness. So what has occurred is he has been able to put a certain amount of his loving kindness into that earth element. And one of my teachers who can see these things has said to me that if an arahant blesses an amulet, the light that somebody with a divine eye can see, the light around the amulet will be a handspan. That kind of light of samadhi and loving kindness. And then people wear this in front of their chest and it has a protective influence. But he said this particular monk, Somdet Do, the radiance around his amulet is from your elbow to the fingers. So it's a much, much more potent. And the reason that the radiance is so much greater is because that monk was apparently one of the recent births of Maitreya Bodhisattva in Thailand. So Maitreya Bodhisattva, having been building his paramis for 16 asankhya plus 100,000 eons, means that he has more samadhi and more metta than most beings. And so when he blessed these amulets, basically that protective influence is much greater in that amulet than in other amulets. Why do I say this? I say this because this monk made something of a vow or a promise. Should anybody recite this gatha, that he would protect them. So the reason he started making amulets in the first place was because the Thai people were very scared of ghosts, and they were also practicing spirit worship. So they were sacrificing animals, making blood pujas to spirits to appease the spirits. And so what he said to them was, stop killing the animals, keep the 5 precepts, and take care of this amulet, and the ghosts won't be able to help you, won't be able to hurt you. So he made the amulet as a skillful means to get the people to stop believing in superstition and to stop making so much bad karma. And he told them to chant it to be so, and he told them to chant this chant. So it's one of those things that you either believe or you don't. But as I said, millions of Thai people chant it every day. And there is a lot of anecdotal evidence of people who have had this amulet who managed to avoid harm, where other people around them were harmed. So anyway, we will go through it. JC, you've got the chant ready to go? So I'll go through it, okay? Jayasana kata Buddha, Jetawa marang sawahanang, Chatusat chasabang rasang, ye piwing sunarasaba. The Buddhas, those who are bulls of men, having established the victory seat, having defeated Mara together with his mount, drank of the ambrosia of the 4 truths. So it's an affirmation about the Buddhas who sat on the Vajra asana under the Bodhi tree, defeated Mara. Mara, not just a being, Mara meaning Kilesa Mara as well, Karma Mara as well, overcoming their own greed, hatred, and delusion. Drank the ambrosia of the 4 truths, that means they experienced liberation. That's what the second noble truth. Third noble truth is the realization of Nibbana. Tanhankara Dayo Buddha Attavisati Nayaka Sabe Patititha Mayhang Matake Te Munesara. Those 28 leaders, Buddhas, beginning with Tanhankara, are all resting on the crown of my head. They are lords and sages. So there is another protective chant called the 28 Buddhas. It's one of the Paritas. And here it's simply imagining 28 Buddhas, those that came before our Buddha, 27 Buddhas before him. So you can imagine 28 Buddhas above your head. Si se patitito maihang buddho dhammo da vilochane sango patitito maihang ure sabagunakaro. The Buddha is established in my head, the Dhamma in my 2 eyes, the Sangha, the fount of all qualities, is established in my chest. So we're often doing Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, something kind of outside. But here we're really bringing it into the mind and body phenomenon. Okay, the Buddha is on my head now. The Dhamma is in my eyes. The positive affirmations are powerful. And so it's a really good way to just, okay, bring this inward. The Sangha is in my chest. What does that mean? You can imagine the Arahants filling your heart space. How lovely. Hadaye me anurudo, sari puto jadakine, kondanyo pitibhaga saming, mokalano chawamake. On my heart is Anuruddha. Sariputta is on my right, Kondanya is on my back, and Moggallana is on my left. So here you're bringing the foremost disciples of the Buddha. Anuruddha was foremost in divine eye. He's at your heart. Sariputta, foremost in wisdom. He's on your right. Moggallana, foremost in psychic powers. He's on your left. And Kondanya is in your back. Dakine sawane maihang asung ananda rahulo kasapo cha mahanomo ubasung wamasotike. On my right ear are resting these 2, Ananda and Rahula. Kassapa and Mahanama, these 2 are resting on my left ear. Kesato pitibhaga saming, suryo wa pabankaro, nisino siri sampano, sobito muni pungavo. At the end of my hair at the back, like the sun, the light maker, is seated the glorious Sobita, who is a bull of a sage. Kumara Kasapo Tero Mahesi Chittawadako, So Maihang Wadane Nichang, Patitasi Gunakaro, the elder Kumara Kassapa, great sage and beautiful speaker, that fount of good qualities is constantly resting on my mouth. Punno Angulimalo cha upali nanda sivali terra pancha imejata nalate tilakama ma. Punya, Angulimala, Upali, and Nanda and Sivali, these 5 true elders are resting like auspicious signs on my forehead. So just as the Indian and Nepali people put this paste on their forehead, right, as a blessing, they're kind of imagining these elders right there on your forehead. So the way that one relates to a chant like this is you read it through a few times, you get a bit of a sense for it, and then you chant it. And if you chant it every day, you end up absorbing and understanding what it means. And you don't have to visualize everything, but you get that basic sense of the Buddhas above my head, the Arahants around my bodies, and you may have a favorite Arahant and you imagine them in your, right there in your heart. Se sa siti mahatera vijita jinasawaka, e te siti mahatera jitawanto jinorasa. Jalanta sila tain jena angamangesu santita, the remaining 80 great elders, victors, disciples of the victor, shining with power of virtue, are established on my limbs. So there were these monks in the time of the Buddha who were great disciples. They'd spent much longer to be foremost in something. And so you're imagining all of those. There isn't a mention of Mahateris, and I think it's fine if you want to include the Bhikkhunis, you can just say the same thing and change it to Mahateri. It's fine to do that, I think. If you want to imagine the great disciples of bhikkhus around you, and then you want to just visualize the great disciples of bhikkhunis around you, it's fine. Just repeat the verse and say Mahateri instead of Tera. Ratanang Purato Asi, Dakine Mettacittena, Dajagang Pachato Asi, Wame Anguli Malakang. To the front is the Ratana Sutta, to the right the Metta Sutta, the Dajaga Sutta is at the back, and the Anguli Mala Parita is on the left. So you could just visualize these as, they used to have palm-leaved texts that were wrapped in nice cloth. So it's just kind of, you can imagine some texts radiating their protective blessings and wisdom. Just to imagine a few suttas around you. Kanda mora paritancha atanatia suttakang akase charanangasi se sapakara santita. The Kanda and Mora paritas and the Atanatia Sutta are a roof in space. The remainder are established as a rampart. So it's basically putting a parasol over you or a pagoda over you and a wall around you, made of suttas. Jinana wara sanyuta satapakara lankata, wata pita disanjata bahira jatupatawa, asesa hunyang yantu ananta jina tejasa. Bound by the power of the victor's realm, with 7 fortress walls arrayed against them, may all adversities within and without, beginning with those caused by wind and bile, come to a complete end through the victor's endless majesty. So this is an affirmation about health, not having issues with your elements. Vasato me sakichena sada sambuddha panjare jinna panjara machami viharantang mahitale sada palitum mangsape te mahapurisasaba. In all my affairs, always in the armor of the fully awakened ones, standing in the center of the victor's armor, may all of those great bulls of men watch over me forever. Ichewa manto sukuto surako, jinanu bhavena jitupatavo, dhammanu bhavena jitari sanko, sankanu bhavena jitantarayo, sadhamanu bhava palito charami, jinapanchare te. Thus being continuously well protected, with adversity defeated through the victor's power, with the crowd of foes vanquished through the Dharma's power, with dangers vanquished through the Sangha's power, guarded by the might of the true Dharma, I go about in the victor's armor. So here we have, it's a practice that developed some centuries after the Buddha. And people can sometimes be critical of commentarial texts or things which were developed after the Buddha. But there's another way to look at it. Sometimes things developed and became respected and well used because they were effective. Basically, millions of people have found this very helpful. And so, as a positive affirmation, if you're feeling lonely, worried, dejected, for example, then affirming that the blessings of the Buddhas are above your head, and there's arahants in your forehead, and there's sanghas in your chest, and Sariputra and Moggallana are right by your side, and there's suttas that you chant are flaming around you as a protective wall, it is a very helpful positive affirmation. And then there is these great bhikkhu who made the pronouncement that for people who chant it, he will protect them. So as an interesting bit of personal anecdotal evidence, whenever I have been bothered by a ghost, which sometimes happens, suppose a ghost comes and is pulling my feet or my toes while what I really want to do is sleep. Then if I chant metta and spread metta and dedicate merit and the ghost doesn't go away, then I will sit up and I will chant the Jinnabanjara 3 times and the ghost always goes away. That's been my experience. So I can say from personal experience that it works. And sometimes ghosts come to us for good karma and you dedicate good karma for them. But if they don't have a close karmic connection, sometimes they can't receive the dedication. Sometimes you spread loving kindness, and if they're experiencing some heavy karma, sometimes you can't help them yet. It just they don't get it. It doesn't penetrate. And so you do your best to spread loving kindness and to help these beings. But then if they keep bothering you, they're actually coming into the realm of making bad karma with a bhikkhu, which you don't want such a being to be making more bad karma. So then you have to protect yourself also. And so this is powerfully protective. And so people can do it, many people do it 3 times a day, and sometimes people do it 9 times a day. And as Ajahn Anand was saying, he's encouraging people to do 108 itipisos. And I have heard Ajahn Anand encourage people to do this chant, particularly with spirit interference. If there's any kind of sense of spirits interfering, I have heard him say to chant this chant 9 times. So it does seem to bring protective influences. And so I just wanted to use it as an example. A few weeks ago, we went through the Mahakaruna chant that we do, that chant which is associated with the compassionate Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Similarly, it's like, if there's a chant that you feel a deep resonance with, that a connection with, or you notice that your mind becomes brighter or more peaceful if you chant it, during difficult times or challenging times, just chant it more. It's just like, okay, I'm going to do a half an hour of chanting, and I'm going to do this chant many times. And I'm going to brighten my mind, gladden my mind, and make a positive affirmation that I am energetically protected. I think in times where we just hear so much anxiety and worry, and then there is anger and resentment because some people believe in the government, some people believe that the government's policies are skillful and necessary, and other people feel that they're an impingement upon their rights and it's totally unreasonable, and other people feel that vaccinations are great and everybody should get one. Other people feel that vaccines are poisonous and they don't want one. And it's like, and people tend to have, the people who are pro-lockdown and pro-vaccine will tend to be quite adamantly so. And the people who are anti-vaccine and anti-lockdown will also tend to be quite adamantly so. And so then you have a potential for conflict and a lot of strong opinions. And it does affect us. So when you recognize that living in a challenging time where there's anxiety, worry, fear, contentiousness, then we need to put some extra energy into brightening the mind and making some kind of affirmation about having blessings in and around us. And certainly I do it, and I know a lot of other people who do it. And interesting thing about most Thai villages is that they don't need to understand something intellectually. They just do it. There's one old lady in the village that does this chant 3 times a day, every day. She just does it. And she's a very radiant, happy looking lady. You know? And she's not wondering if the Buddha taught it or if it's commentarial or if the devas really do help. She just does the chant and she feels good. And so Ajahn Sumedho once said, Thai people have superstitious belief in wise things. And then he said about modern people, many modern people have intelligent thoughts about stupid things. So it's so yeah, I just wanted to share that a little bit, that to encourage you, if you find that JC can make that chant available and send it to you if you want to practice it. But like I said, you just read it through a little bit first and then you just chant the Pali. But if you do that every day, read it through, chant the Pali, read it through, chant the Pali, you will get a sense for, okay, this is the part where the Buddhas are above my head. Okay, this is the part where the Arahants are around me. And okay, this is the flaming suttas. Okay, it'll just, by osmosis, you'll get it and you'll learn it and you'll be able to visualize parts of it. And experiment, see. You might want to find a recitation of it somewhere because it is a bit tricky. And if people are interested, we could also add it to our puja if it might be helpful to you to chant along. Maybe we can take some kind of a vote, JC, or on the email list, how many people want to add this chant to the puja. Okay, Jason Joy C, okay, it's a done deal.
Yeah, Ajahn, we can do that and we can upload to YouTube. So in future,
right.
if you don't repeat, then people can.
I have memorized it.
Well.
I do know the chant. I have memorized it. And, but if there is another chant that you really like, there is the 28 Buddhas chant is actually mentioned in the sutta. If you like to chant the names of the 28 Buddhas, it's a powerful protection. Or if there's just a chant that you really like, you can maybe do it 3 times or 7 times or 9 times or 21 times. And be determined about making positive affirmations and be determined about generating powerful brightness as a balancing gesture towards powerful darkness. We have to put in more effort, more energy in times when the clarity and the brightness is challenged.
Thank you, Prajan, for sharing such a beautiful, meaningful chant.